Gluten Free Lady. My early career was punctuated by random episodes of finding myself at the front desk on various Friday mornings. One time, my general manager was up front with me, and it was just him. Just us. Two amigos. Yeah. Allow me to paint a picture of my place of employment. My general manager, Jim, tunneled in and out of the office all day like an inexperienced drug mule. But I guess that was part of the job. A slave to the harsh yelps of customers and the red-black ink dance that splatters itself across our monthly reports. I got it. I just didn't like it. I recall that morning well. I was wearing my uniform blue button-up shirt, black slacks, and of course, dress shoes. I looked like a total douche. If hotels were ships, I was glued to my own special little perch, my own sphere of command, the left side of the desk that day. If you were standing on the opposite side of the desk than I do, then I would be on the right side of the desk. The other side was also closer to Jim's office, which made it easier for him to pop out and help if need be. So that morning was busy, just full of traffic. Even for a morning coming off a sold-out night, it was busy. I had a lobby full of people. Seating in the breakfast bar was full when I arrived that morning, but was slowly tapering off. There were just people coming and going all morning. Thankfully so, I did not have a continuous flow of asshole guests to deal with. Such times do come upon us, but this day was not one of them. I will say, though, that the assholes I dealt with that day, the crazy psycho bitch lady and her shitbag husband, were the equivalent of a constant flow of bullshit to deal with at work. So I suppose really, in all honesty, the only thing to be thankful for is the fact that I can share this tale with all of you readers out there. I promise you that this story is completely true. The shit totally happened. At the time, it was one of the stranger and rather annoying experiences of my life. However, I now can look back upon it fondly, as it was indeed entertaining. Here is what took place that day. I was just standing there working. Simple shit. I would answer the phone, check guests out, help people find the freeway, look up the weather reports for them, and in general, just used my acting skills to make everyone I spoke to feel like I gave a shit about them. Then it happened. This woman, who will forever be known as Gluten Free Lady, walks up to me at the desk holding a styrofoam plate and a banana. She must have been in her early to mid to late 60s. She was wearing a light blue blouse and khakis, but not just any khakis. They were like the perfect pair of old people khakis. The kind of khakis you see older people wearing, and the only explanation for this is that every senior citizen shops at the same goddamn store. They're the kind of pants one wears when they've given up on life. She was wearing those. So I knew this was not going to go well for anyone. This woman walks up to me and asks me, excuse me, is there anything over in the breakfast area that is gluten-free? I have a gluten intolerance, in a rather snobby tone. I proceeded to name off everything we offered for breakfast that was indeed gluten-free, which was a good 75% of the fucking food over in the breakfast bar. And I did this while remaining to be very polite to her. None of what I said was in any way what she wanted to hear. Gluten Free Lady was one of those people who's never fully satisfied with anything. She also wanted me to tell her something we had that not only was gluten-free, but something she enjoyed eating. I guess I'm supposed to be a fucking mind reader or something to be able to correctly guess what she would enjoy in this criterion, and some sort of wizard where I could conjure all her heart's desires out of thin air. After I exhausted every little thing we had to offer, she finally just said, "Oh great, there's nothing. I guess I'll have to settle for a banana." Just then, her husband walked up. He was basically dressed like Mr. Rogers, except he was wearing polished loafers and not chucks. He also was not nearly as cool as Mr. Rogers. This guy was a giant sack of shit. Mr. Rogers, on the other hand, is one badass motherfucker. This douche nozzle walks up next to her, staring me down like he thought he could set me on fire with his mind like he was in a Stephen King story or something. He just walks up to me with a death glare, stands next to her, and asks, "Is everything okay, dear?" All the while staring at me like he wants me to die some horrible death. She went into detail telling him about the heartache the hotel and I, especially, have caused her. He just says, "Well, at least you have your banana waiting for you. I'll go get the rest of our things while you eat." He then proceeds to walk away back up to their room. Across the lobby from the desk there stood a fireplace that blocks the view of the middle part of the breakfast bar seating area. Gluten Free Lady walks behind the fireplace and sits down, which then created a blind spot in which I could not see Gluten Free Lady. I had to see exactly what she was doing, as morbid curiosity dictates. I just could not believe that she would be eating with all the fuss she made. So I moved to the side a bit to get a better view of her. I saw her just sitting there with her unpeeled banana on her plate while she looked around with a sad look on her face like a kid who lost their mom in Walmart. I took it upon myself to forewarn Jim about my dealings with her because I had a feeling this was going to turn into an issue of epic proportion. And as luck would have it, she walks her sad ass back up to the desk for some more groaning about the supposed lack of gluten-free items for breakfast. She comes up and asks if my manager is around so she may speak with him. Jim hears this and walks out. Gluten Free Lady just goes off on this rant about how she has a gluten allergy and how we should be more open to the idea of providing more gluten-free options on the menu. She just went off for a while about this shit and then expected Jim to be able to give her an answer that she wanted. Jim basically just gave her the answers I gave her. I was especially fond of it when Jim said to her, "We have eggs, those are gluten-free." And this suggestion was not good enough for her because, and I fucking quote, No, I can't have eggs either. If it's not cooked right, then I just can't stand the taste, and I'm pretty sure it makes me break out. After this small feeling of defeat, Gluten Free Lady then goes back to her seat to resume sulking and staring at her banana some more. Jim and I went into his office where he told me not to worry much about her. He just explained that people like her just want attention and just want to constantly bitch, which is true. All this woman ultimately wanted was to be unhappy. She's just one of those shitbag people who only ever wants to be fucking miserable. Then it happened. All her bullshit began to come to a head. I go back out to the front to find her standing there wanting to yell some more at my general manager and I about everything. On the verge of tears, her rant went a little something like this. "I just don't understand why your company cannot provide a service for its guests like me who have a severe allergy to gluten. You claim to be family friendly, but you won't take into consideration my feelings." There was really very little more Jim could do for her at this point. He tried making food suggestions again. Among his suggestions, she had to escalate the situation even more. Somehow, among his suggestions, she has now also developed an allergy to dairy. None of his suggestions were anything new, but she had to go on a rant about her dairy allergy as well as her gluten allergy. Due to how abrupt that one came about, I can only assume it was an allergy that she developed in the short time we were speaking with her. She just interrupted Jim and said, "Excuse me, I just told you I have a severe gluten allergy, and now, not only are you refusing to rectify the situation for me, but now you're suggesting that I consume a product containing dairy? What is wrong with you? Why don't you know I am lactose intolerant?" At this point, she began to tear up. Her husband, still nowhere to be found. Either he was slow at packing their bags or was trying to hang himself. "What about me?" Gluten Free Lady cried as she pounded her chest. "Would you like me to go somewhere and get you something?" Jim said. She continued to cry as she said to Jim, "No, that's not good enough." Gluten Free Lady goes and sits back down at her chair and begins to eat her banana while crying. Have you ever seen a 65-year-old woman eat a banana while crying? I have. It's hilarious. She continued to cry as she said to Jim, "Oh, whoops, I almost reread that. Sorry." Jim turns toward me, cringing, trying to hold back laughter. He sort of slightly motions with his hand while nodding his head to the side to signal me to go into his office with him. As soon as he shut the door, we began to laugh so hard we were in tears. But who wouldn't be? This lady's out of her fucking mind. Of course, to make matters more humorous for us, Jim zoomed in the security camera in the breakfast bar so it was focused in right on this lady crying while eating a banana. It was the funniest fucking thing I had seen in a long time. I laughed so hard I nearly shit myself. While she finished chewing on her banana and wiped her tears, we had to look alive. She began to approach the desk once again. I decided to try and give my boss a break and go out there first. Full knowing what was about to transpire, I still had to ask her, "How can I help you, ma'am?" Before responding verbally, she first gave me a very over-the-top scowl. After a moment, she said she needed to speak with my manager. He then came out to speak with her, or rather stand there and be yelled at. I moved back to the other side of the desk to help anyone else who would happen to come by, while still listening to what she was saying. Jim asks how he could help her, and she managed to step it up a notch by starting the crying once again and saying, Why can't your company look out for me? What about me? I have traveled all across the country. I've read reviews online. Many hotels now have a gluten-free menu for those of us with a gluten intolerance. I have seen these reviews. They say things like, nice stay, has gluten-free food. I have never been treated so unfairly. What about me? All that Jim knew to do was offer once again to leave the hotel and buy her something from anywhere she likes. She is not paying for it, the hotel is. He's saying that he will take money from the register and go buy her whatever the hell she wants to eat for breakfast. Gluten Free Lady just gave him a look of disgust, like she was just called every insult in the book, and looked at him and said, no, no, that just isn't good enough. Too little, too late. Don't you understand that there are grocery stores with whole aisles filled with food for people like me? Why don't you care about what is going on? What about me? All I could think was, yeah, I get it, lady. You have a food allergy. But it is still not my fault that nature wants you dead. Look, I'm really sorry. I would still happily go get you something if you wanted, Jim said when he got a moment's break from her screeching. She grew angrier and decided to add some spice to her story. Her husband had also walked back up at this time. I guess he didn't hang himself after all. Oh well, better luck next time, I guess. She looked Jim dead in the face and said, look, I told you that it's too little too late, and I will have you know that last night I had some rice cakes to eat because I can't have gluten. I wanted some peanut butter to put on them. I came to the desk and asked your employer over there for some peanut butter. He threw the pen out of his hand and slammed it on the desk and said, if you want peanut butter, then you can go to the store and buy some peanut butter for your own goddamn self. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I cannot believe it either. So somehow, the night prior, when I wasn't even there, I snapped on this lady when she asked me for some peanut butter, and did so in such a way that could have caused me to lose my job. Right. I'm sure that happened. Jim just looked at me with the most confused look imaginable. I just shrugged and put my hands up. It was about this time that Gluten Free Lady's husband looked over at me once again to give me his glare. I really don't know what was up with that. Maybe he was hot for me or something. Who knows? But I digress. He comes over to me and lets out this rather long sigh. I can only imagine that he had an enlarged prostate, and this sigh he let out was a sigh of relief as he let out an epic piss he'd been holding in due to his prostate issues. But it's cool because he was wearing adult diapers, and it had been a while since he had eaten asparagus, so no one's gonna smell the piss. It was that kind of sigh, if you can imagine. After he finished with his sigh, he handed me his room keys. He said to me, checking out, the stay could have been better. First of all, my wife has severe food allergies. I quickly interjected by saying, yes, she has made this abundantly clear all morning. Her husband once again gave me his glare. He continued, as I was saying, my wife has severe food allergies. We went out to dinner, and where we went had mostly things on the menu that she could not eat. All my wife could eat there was a salad. My wife had a salad for dinner. Again, I had to interject. Well, if that's the case, then why didn't you just decide to leave and go somewhere else where she could eat something more substantial? I gathered this did not sit very well with him, as once again I got the glare. As I was saying, he said, after our terrible time at dinner, my wife asked you for some peanut butter, and you refused her peanut butter. At this point in the morning, I was beyond done with dealing with these assholes. All I could think to say was, yeah, I have a tendency to do that. He wrapped up our conversation by saying, we will not be coming back. This was so heartbreaking to hear. This crazy lady and her Mr. Rogers wannabe husband, who is not even a fraction as cool, are telling me they will never stay at my hotel again. He carried out their bags with his head down, while she remained very animated and crying and screaming the whole way out the door. Jim and I took a moment to go to his office and laugh and re-watch some footage of this woman crying while eating a banana.